Whereabouts in Birmingham? From city centre? Is that your?
From Erdington, which isn't like the most glamorous place in the world, but I love it. So it's north. It's not a place that you'd aspire to probably live in. People know Sutton Coldfield quite well, and I'm quite close to there. But I lived here kind of when I was younger. I moved to Bristol for 10 years, came back. Parents getting older. You want to spend more time with family, and I just love it. Plus, you can get a much bigger house for far less money in lovely Erdington.
Well,
this
it's
house
funny.
is house.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's very nice. It feels very Birmingham.
Yeah.
Like I at my university, I went to uni in Brum, and my first introduction to Birmingham was Perry Bar, and
lovely. That's not too far.
The halls were literally opposite the one stop. I can't remember if that was what it was called, but I think on the first day during our induction week, someone got shot in Perry Bar, and I was like, "Cool, I'm in Birmingham." Great. This feels edgy. Yeah, it certainly does. I really like Birmingham though. I had so many people who were just like, "Oh, you're going to Birmingham? It's very boring," like mocking the accent, which I grew to love, and like some of my best friends have got that nice Brummy twang. Like I grew to really, really love it.
Yeah, we're a modest bunch, and actually we've got so much going for us. But because of our modesty, we don't really talk about it. Like the Scousers, of course, they've got a beautiful city, but they love telling people about it. With Birmingham, we're kind of like, "Oh yeah, we're sorry." But actually, if you kind of scrape the surface, we've got so much culture. And it's wonderful. Some really, really cool places, but we sort of hide them away a little bit. You have to know where to go. But I think fundamentally, Brummie's really warm, nice people there. Having lived in different places now, coming home, people are just lovely in a shop, or if you fall in the street. Not that I tend to do that very much, or people are generally quite friendly people. So
yeah, I love the word bab. It infected my language for years. I could never. I've only just sort of finally dropped it. But whenever I speak to my friends from there, it's always like, "You're right, bab." It just sort of happens. It falls out of the mouth like far too easily.
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you for coming and joining on this, Heather. Like I've been sort of there's people who listen to the show know it's sort of AI adjacent, creator adjacent, talking to people who live and breathe in the sort of technology world, creating new stuff. And I think your journey and what you're doing is like really fascinating, because I think there's the journey that you've been on yourself, but then there's the kind of actual work that you're doing, kind of helping people get to grips with AI, particularly as a kind of consultant. But you're not really like a technical person, are you? Like your background's not, you're not an engineer or a developer, are you?
Absolutely, far from it. I am not. I've never been sort of a first mover in any way whatsoever. I don't have the latest technology. I don't queue around the block for the latest console, anything like that. I frequently get stuck with basic things, technology-wise. But I think the most exciting thing about it's not AI. AI has been around since '56. We've been using AI for a really long time. Generative AI, the new thing, is the newest thing, is that it's so accessible without any technical knowledge, hence calling a business AI for non-techies. I want to be as descriptive as possible. I think most people are non-techies. People don't really want to know how it works. They want to know how it can work for them. And that's the whole basis of what I'm doing here.
Yeah. Well, we talk about in marketing, like you sell the sizzle, not the sausage. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are still banging the AI thing and not talking about the advantages. And we're going to come on to a bit of that in a minute, because I know that there's a post that you put out recently about some of the bigger challenges that you're looking to solve with the clients that you work with. And I have a suspicion that might rear its head when we have that discussion. But like, can we dive into? So you talk about not being a technical person, not queuing around the block for the latest PS4 or 5. I don't even know anymore. I've got 2 small kids. I don't have time for games. But like, what was your first encounter with, as you quite rightly said, like generative AI? Do you remember?
Well, it would be 2022. So before, or maybe was it? 2022. So before the kind of big ChatGPT thing that got most people into it. Or maybe it was a little bit in 2021. So I ran a marketing agency, and we had this big client, Centrica, I'll just name them. And they came to us. We thought this was the right place, right time thing. We had a little micro agency, great big potential deal. So we thought this is exciting. And they were selling a product that was £10 million per sale. It was a battery optimization product, and they had 40 companies in the whole world that it could afford it, and it would be relevant for. So they gave us this list of 40 people, and they've said, we've been knocking on these doors and nobody's answering. You know, what can you do about it? Lord knows why they came to us, but I think they'd be glad by the end. So we had a look, and we had a look at how they were segmenting down their audience, and they were looking at the usual things. So the company news, job title, pain points, that type of thing. But they weren't going to individual level. And I was thinking, this is about as high ticket as it gets, £10 million a sale. You need to be as granular as humanly possible, and you need to learn about the individuals. So how can you gather information if people don't, unless you're going to be on LinkedIn bearing all, you're not really going to learn that much about a person and who they actually are and the type of language they respond to. So I found a tool at the time. There are now 3 big ones, but there was only one at the time, called Crystal Nose. Crystal Nose is still around. And what that does is it pulls off all these digital breadcrumbs. So when you're on the internet, you leave these digital breadcrumbs everywhere. So you leave a comment, you write a post, you're in an article, you're on a YouTube, you leave these digital breadcrumbs. And then this pulls it all together and analyzes it in such a clever way that it creates this sales playbook for that individual person. So what type of language are they going to respond to? How to negotiate with them? Should you be really, really short and to the point? What sort of topics should you cover that interest them? It was fascinating. And at first I thought, this is a bit of a kind of horoscope. I'm going to offend loads of people by saying that, but kind of a bit made up. And it will just pull my own off. And I thought, that's scarily accurate. And then I saw Google were using it, and I was thinking, okay, this could work. So we applied it to the campaign. We got £60 million worth of sales for them. Sold 6.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that made me so sorry.
I was going to say, did you negotiate a commission basis?
No, and our prices were so low. It was such a bad thing. But so then we went ahead and did it for, obviously not 10 million, so that's quite rare, but so 100 grand, 200 grand products for IT businesses, and made another 15 million. And I just thought this was really, really exciting, really exciting. That kind of piqued my curiosity in AI and what the big things AI can do for small businesses and small people.
So I hear that, and there's a part of me, the marketer in me, that gets very excited by that kind of level of research and depth of understanding. And we talk all the time about, you really need to understand your customers. And then there's another side of me which is oddly kind of terrified, almost sort of taken aback. What was your sort of first, I mean, you talked about sort of being excited by it, but was there a little thought in the back of your mind of just like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think at that point, no, it was more excitement when I thought, oh wow, this can help me do my job better. And it was publicly available stuff. It's all stuff you've actually actively put out there yourself. So it didn't feel unethical. It felt like, okay, this is just gathering what's out there in a clever way. It's not kind of delving into something that you didn't want to do. The analysis you probably didn't ask for, but you could manually do it if you had a year to spare. You could actually pull these things together and analyze them yourself. So it kind of felt okay. But when I've started to see some of the products available now, I have had many crisis moments. My husband will always say, I'm reading Mustafa Suleyman's book at the moment. What's it called? I can't remember what it's called for some reason. The wave. And that is terrifying me about the potential of what's happening right now. And have these moments and then have to snap myself back into excitement mode and go, right, let's focus on the present and what we've got now and kind of make hay while the sun shines.
Well, I haven't heard about that book, but I've just made a note, so that's going on the reading list.
Yeah.
But so a conversation I had for this show a few weeks ago was with the chief marketing officer at Nobody Studios, who's funding Thoughtformer and a host of other companies, and he was talking about AI in terms of understanding the value of your IP rigorously and rapidly, kind of like testing marketing messages and finding communities and stuff, and like just sort of really accelerating the whole kind of process of bringing new products and new things to market.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that obviously you've got your own business like AI for non-techies, which is obviously all about and probably harnessing power of AI and everything that you've learned about it. Like, what's been your journey to AI for non-techies? Like, what was the kind of moment for you where you realized that it needed to be, because it started as a newsletter, I understand. So what was the moment where you're like, okay, this is way beyond just a weekly drop in the ocean? Like, talk me through that.
Well, it was so it started when I saw ChatGPT for the first time and got really excited about it. I thought, right, I was running my agency, Beasting Digital, and I thought we're going to be an AI first agency. And one of the already offered LinkedIn training. I thought people are going to need training for this, so how about I get ahead of that? And one of the things that we do, AI training, and we'll optimize the hell out of our processes. I saw it a bit like it was automation. We'll make ourselves much more productive as a business. And this will be exciting. I wanted to be, I've always been really ambitious, but we'll be the UK's first AI first agency, and then we'll show other agencies how to do it, and there'll be some money in that. So that's what I was thinking. But I released the newsletter, and the newsletter grew really fast. And bear in mind, this is something I don't promote the newsletter, and it's at 30,000. I don't mention it anywhere, or I haven't done a post about it. I don't think. I do a post on a Monday when I put it out on LinkedIn, and that's about it. But I don't mention it to anyone. It's not been an active growth thing, but it's growing so much every week anyway, which is just wonderful. I do mean to kind of grow that at some point. But then as I was showing people, my LinkedIn started to grow as well, and it started to accelerate. And I was thinking, oh, this is exciting now. I'm nearly at 50,000, which is incredible. People started to ask me. So off the back of that, these opportunities started to come, and they were, oh, can you show our business this? And I was like, what do you mean? I've only been doing it for 6 months. But actually, that's when something's so new. So AI, as I say, emphasize AI is nothing new. We've all been using it for decades. But this generative AI thing, so how to use these things, these LLMs like ChatGPT and Gemini, or Bard as it was called then, people wanted me to show them what I'd learned in the 6 months. So I'd spent, since just jumping back a bit, I'd spent since ChatGPT came out, I dedicated 3 to 4 hours every single day, including Sundays, including Christmas Day, trying as much as I possibly can. I hyper focus on things, and I'm really driven when I want to be. And this was one of my things that I've hyper focused on. I haven't stopped hyper focusing. And that knowledge and that time put me ahead of the vast majority of other people. And that's a very good move, because now, I'm speaking as not an expert. So I don't think, I suppose what is an expert, but now I know more than the majority of people about how to use it, because I've kept up that 3-4 hours every single day. I can't remember what you asked me this question now.
Well, I think that's fascinating in a way that, people who are looking to go from 0 to 1, they might hear that and kind of go, that's crazy. Like, I'm never going to dedicate that amount of time and energy. But there's always people like you who are doing that for them and then handing on that knowledge. And like you said, you had this newsletter, and then you started to grow, and you started getting asked questions, and then it migrated into a fully formed business, and you're now a sort of consultant working with companies. Like, what's some of the first or the most common questions you get asked, and like, how did you go about setting that up? Like, I'm just interested in how that thought process was going from you, from sort of diving in and using ChatGPT sort of multiple hours a day, into a fully fledged consultant business, working with clients.
Well, it was hearing those same questions over and over again. Like, every call I have starts with exactly the same thing. We have a group of people. Some people are into the idea, some people are not, and we have a mixed technical ability. I hear that 3 or 4 times every single day, and it comes from massive businesses, big enterprises, and it comes from tiny little other micro agencies as well. So it's this massive level playing field. And when you start to see that repetition, you start to think there's a service there, there's a product there, almost there's a framework, there's toolkits I can create. And then I heard more and more of these same problems coming up as well, which LLM to pick and all of that sort of stuff. So that naturally informs the type of content that I can create. But people just started to ask. So it started off with speaking, actually. So somebody said, do you want to come in and speak? And it was at the Excel Centre. And I'd never spoken before.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So it was a big thing. And I remember, I'll never forget it actually. It was only October 2020, so 2023, was it? God, it's not even been a year. October 2023, my first time of speaking. And I've spoken so many times since then, all around the world. But Technology for Marketing conference. And I had this little theatre, and I remember I was sat there before Domino's were doing this thing, and I was like, oh my God, Domino's are here, and they're going to give me free pizza. That's what I'm always thinking about food. But they had like 10 people show up for their talk. So I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so embarrassing. Nobody's going to be here. And I was with my lovely colleague, Ellie, who was just, oh, don't worry, I'll be here, and just look at me and just do the whole thing. It'll be good practice. And then so Domino's went, and I started my talk, and then this massive queue started to form. This huge queue.
Oh, wow.
Theatre. And the theatre completely filled up. And then we had like 3 lines deep of people standing there, all for my very first time. I've never been so nervous. I could have been sick. Never been so nervous in my life. And gave my sort of 20 or 30 minute talk. And then there was this big, massive queue of people to speak to me. And it was those sorts of moments that made me go, oh my God, the demand for this is huge. People want this explained in this non-technical, genuinely practical way. There's so much. There's so much coverage by the tech bro type community who are kind of gatekeeping it with technical, keeping using technical terms. And by technical terms, they probably wouldn't call them, but things like APIs. My audience don't really care, again, not about how it works, they care how it can work for them. So there's a big appetite for this. Let's play AI for dummies, basically, or generative AI for dummies. How can I actually use it? How can I actually see ROI? Show me what you're really doing. So kind of, and then it sort of snowballed from there. Once I've done one speaking gig, there was loads. I got flown to Miami and to Madrid and to Lisbon, Barcelona, and all these wonderful places.
Can you believe this? Like, if you told yourself 2 years ago that this is what was going to be happening to you, would you have believed it?
No, not in a million years. It's I've only just realised it's not even been a year actually since saying that. Then from that first speaking gig, there's been a lot obviously before then, but a lot of other stuff happening. But it is insane, the pace of it. But just saying yes to everything, and I think there's been a huge thing of that terrifies me. Let's go and do that. And that's something. Yeah.
Because I think that's just that kind of mindset actually about embracing some of the fear or just choosing to run headfirst into it. I think it's probably the guiding force, or probably I reckon that's probably what you're teaching people, right? That it's not if it's the only way to kind of really get over that fear is to embrace it and to go and try it and do it. So what was your first talk about at the Excel then? You said it was a marketing tech conference. Like, what were you saying? And then what were people asking you afterwards?
Yeah, so this was about creating LinkedIn posts using AI, because it kind of crossed over. I needed to talk about something I really knew about, and creating LinkedIn posts, something I'd done for years, LinkedIn training, so we could talk about that. I needed that kind of base. And then the AI stuff I did know about, but I felt like a massive imposter. So somebody's going to ask me a question about coding or something. They didn't. They were just, most of the questions were around how can I get AI to sound like me? That I get asked that a lot. So I've tried prompting and all this sort of stuff. What the techniques I can use to get AI to actually sound like me in my writing, so I can build a little machine that can get me draft first posts and things like that. And the answer to that's generally really bloody good prompting. And that's an ongoing thing. There's free form prompting, which is this natural conversation, and there's more structured prompting, which gets you better results. And it's quite a big learning curve to learn how to prompt properly, and also having an absolute ton of examples of what you mean. You combine those two things and you start to get really good results. But that means you have to already, if you're starting out on LinkedIn, you haven't got those examples to give. So, how are you going to How are you going to give 50 examples of great posts unless you're going to rip somebody else off?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that's probably what you'd end up doing. It's like, I really like the way that Heather Murray sounds. If I just fed you her activity feed, can you? And of course it can. Have you seen any of your posts in the wild? That's a broke question.
Yeah. I mean, this one guy, or actually it wasn't as a company, they took my entire carousel post, accidentally tagged me in it, and I was like, hang on a second. And then they untagged me, but they just took my logo off every slide. That's all they did. Crazy. Every single graphic. So annoying, because that took me hours and hours to write that. It's a big white paper. I hadn't written the white paper, but it was an academic white paper. I hadn't used AI. I'd actually properly read it, and then me and my graphic designer had worked on it. it felt awful. But then I called them
Yeah.
out on LinkedIn, and they were like, please take it down, and I didn't. So
It's crazy. Crazy world, crazy times. So from talking about LinkedIn posting and making AI work for you to consultancy business. So when you're brought in, what are the biggest challenges that you're often working on? Because you mentioned that, it's a question of multi-skill level, don't know what they don't know, those
yeah.
kind of challenges. But what do you often find like the big challenges that's like, we don't even know how to get started?
I think attitudes are a real tough one to begin with. There's a lot of people, a lot of anger still. People really going, why on earth would I embrace something that could make me redundant? Or I think that often comes out in different ways. They go, it's a fad. I mean, just before we started this call, it's a guy just going, oh yeah, it's just a cheap trick. It will be over soon. I was like, are you kidding me? Really? And there's a lot of that. As I say, it comes out in a lot of different ways, but I think people are quite scared, and fear manifesting in real anger. So I've seen a lot of that. People very resistant, and they won't listen during training sessions and things like that. So I have to. It's been quite a challenge, but I quite enjoy kind of watching them change their attitude and watching them start to turn towards the screen and kind of, actually, and then maybe trying a little bit during the lunch hours, so, during training sessions. But yeah, so attitudes is a change management piece. There's so much to do. And then, it's that problem centricity as well, and not tech centricity, changing that mindset too. So starting with your business goals, and you start with your goals. What's stopping you from achieving those goals? Not start with the tool, where most people are stuck. So the companies will make an announcement, right? We've all got Copilot, we've all got ChatGPT now, and they go, right, okay, well, I'm adding this into something. What do I do with it? And they come up with the worst use cases because they haven't thought about the right way. So teaching people that is the way to do it is definitely, they're the two things I always start off with doing. Getting buy-in, stakeholder buy-in just generally, and then problem centricity. And so that's the best way to measure ROI as well, is going, look, there's your problem. Now your problem's less. Thanks to this tool.
Yeah. I mean, I think so I work in a lot of content creation and strategy, and I've heard from writers in particular, like that they've been replaced by people exploring with ChatGPT, and they are starting to come back now, because I think people didn't fully understand where ChatGPT in particular would sit in that kind of workflow, in that use case, and businesses are realizing that in that instance, what AI is doing is producing the best average, like the most middle of the road, trying to be as safe and inoffensive and just bog standard, I guess, in a certain extent. And I know you talk about the importance of like great prompting and what have you, but you spent probably countless hours trying to do that, and I bet there are still times where you look at the response and you think, that's not very good, or not what I really need. So
it's probably it's picking the most likely next word. So it's always going to be generic. It's not. I think people think it's taking chunks from things. It's not taking chunks. It's going, right, okay, the cat sat on there is probably going to be Matt is the next word. It's just the most likely. So it's going to be the most obvious next word by default. So you have to kind of prompt out of that. But the copywriter thing's really interesting. As somebody who used to be a copywriter, and then my agency was for a long time a copywriting agency, it's something that's really dear to my heart, because some of my copywriters that used to work for me are coming to me now saying, oh, there's hardly anything around. What, can you put a recommendation out, or can you do something on LinkedIn for me, and that type of thing. And that's not nice to see, particularly these are fantastic writers as well, like the cream of the crop. So yeah, I think there is, like you say, there's this moment where people are going, oh, we'll do it ourselves. And then I do think there's going to be a wave of people going, actually, we'll do it back. I think there may be an expectation for people to create more quickly. So I, for example, was writing, I was sat at a train station, I managed to write 8 landing pages, really optimized landing pages in a couple of hours. And that would have normally taken me 6 hours, 7 hours. And they were I was really, really pleased with them. That is, it can help me do things more quickly, but I needed to know how to instruct it properly. As a copywriter, I needed to give it a big old brief and tweak that brief, and then I needed to edit it properly at the end. It was not ready. So you need to have the skill itself to be able to describe what good looks like and then recognize it the other side.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very sort of specific use case to an industry and a practice that I understand well. And I was just using it as an example of people thinking that they have coming at it from a tool perspective, as opposed to looking at the skill set that they're actually trying to enhance and develop and push things through that way. And you talked obviously about resistance to change as well, and like changing people's attitudes and moving things along. But there's another side of this, that there's a new AI tool or a new, application that sort of appears almost every day. Like, how are you, or do you even try to kind of keep ahead of that? And are you, do you have a sort of set tools that you describe people to use, or are you just in a situation where it's kind of like trying to help people filter through some of the stuff and just recognize what it is that they need?
Yeah, I think there is hundreds of thousands of tools, and even the amount of time I spend, and it's literally my job to stay ahead as much as possible. I can't expect anybody else to be able to stay ahead if I can't, when I'm focusing on that so much, and I'm so high energy anyway. Like, I'm constantly, it's probably more like 5 hours a day, because I'm listening to stuff and I'm walking the dog and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's impossible to stay. You cannot stay on top of the whole of generative AI. You have to think about the stuff that would be useful for you. So for me, it's a bit broader because I'm training people on it, but you need to know, you need to be able to recognize what does produce good results. So I love sales, I love marketing, I love personal productivity. So they have been my 3 things that I focus on. So I've always got my kind of ear to the ground for new tools. And by ear to the ground, I've got very specific things that I do each week. So I've specific people I follow on LinkedIn, like somebody like Max Rasher. If you were into your kind of cutting edge tools around video and image gen, he's perfect to follow, because if something comes out, he's on it, he'll be first. Drew Brooker and Rory Flynn for Midjourney and things like that. So but Audrey Chia, really good for copywriting. She showed me something called you.com yesterday whilst we were in a live debate that I was hosting. And I went onto it afterwards and I was going, oh my God, wow. Because it's it's Perplexity. It seems like it. I haven't played with it much yet, just an hour or so. Perplexity plus ChatGPT plus Claude plus Gemini plus all of those things all in one go. So that just sounds amazing. You just switch between them, but within one tool. So
oh my God.
those sorts of things, it sounds great. So so there's those people that I follow, and then there's the artificial intelligence podcast on Spotify that's every week, and it's got a marketing built by Paul Roker, I think his name is. It is so good, and the way they approach it is slightly academic but really accessible, and they're very, very credible. And then Matt Wolf on YouTube as well. So whenever I have a bath, I watch Matt Wolf. Just to meet him. His videos are fantastic, and I aspire. I need to start doing videos soon, because I realise that's on LinkedIn's my platform. LinkedIn's about to have a TikTok style feed. I need to get used to video. But he's my idol in that sort of world. I think he's fantastic. It comes across in a very authentic way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for people who can make the complex, or the stuff that people are afraid of, like, really digestible and actionable. So let's talk about actually like getting companies or getting started with it. So we sort of talked around it and talked about, you doing the training and some of the tools as well. But like, what do you advise people to do, like, as a starting point?
So, as I said before, start with your problems. So map out the problems. Think about your business goals or your goals for yourself. Bear in mind, AI can be used in very much a personal way as well. So think about things you want to achieve, whether it's at work or whether it's at home, and the things that are stopping you achieving them. So mapping out your problems. And then when you've got your list of problems, try and prioritize them. Which ones are most important? Then is the tough bit at the moment, because of lack of credible sources, and it's what AI for non-techies I'm trying to build. Part of my plan is to build us as a credible source. You think, I can go over there and find, a list of tools in sales, and that's what we're sort of building. Future Tools is great, by the way, futuretools.io, if you're looking for kind of use cases, not use cases, new AI tools. But yeah, try and map your the tools that are coming out. Follow those people that I was saying before to the problem, and then try one tool, not loads, just one for one problem. Well, I started off with my AI note taker. That was the very first one. I use Sybil, but there's tons of different ones available. Fathom, Otter, Fireflies, all of those.
Grain was another one I've seen recently.
Tons. There's Win. There's loads and loads of them. And I think Fathom has a free version as well that just does a transcript for you. It's kind of all you need, really, because that transcript can be pulled into ChatGPT or Claude and have different use cases. It's not just for people who think, oh, well, it's a transcript. What am I going to do with the transcript? The answer is so much. As the biggest use case I've got. And so that first tool that I started to use, I integrated it into my team at the time. Everybody thought it was great. We had this really accurate record of all of our meetings. And then suddenly we were like, we can do client onboardings with this and get whole content strategies, really accurate from all the things they've said. We can train ourselves in sales, look for possible upsells, enrich client relationships. What else could we have said? What could we send them that would be of interest to them? What type of articles? There's so much you can do plugging this stuff into your CRM as well. Just from that one tool. So picking one tool and learning how to use it properly and maximizing it. I really recommend starting off with an AI note taker as your first tool and start from there. And when you've got that and you've integrated that and you think, I don't know what I'd do without that. Brilliant. Then you go on to your next one and you start doing that. But not trying to bring on 5-6 tools at once and not starting with the tool itself.
Yeah, that's really good advice, actually. So I think so I started with Otter and I've since migrated away from Otter just because I do quite a few podcasts and I discovered Cast Magic and
that's really good stuff. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Just in terms of how easy it's like clipping up videos, doing all the interrogation, creating it's now to the point where there's custom prompts. So as soon as I do an upload of a transcript, like all my custom prompts run and it gives me all the things that I need to post on social, video snippets, quote, like the whole thing. And like it's just a game-changing tool. I'm not sponsored by them, but I'm hoping that if I mention them enough times, they'll find me. So I'd be remiss like to not kind of talk about or kind of focus on creator and people who are sort of looking at building products and getting things off the ground and moving quickly. Like was AI used, or have you used AI to sort of support the growth of your business? And like how are you actively using it online? And you talked about like AI helping you on LinkedIn with posts or whatever. I'm just intrigued how else you're using it and what advice you'd have for solopreneurs, for lack of a better term, creators.
Yeah, I think that's fair, isn't it? I use it in so many different ways. So like I was saying, the landing pages, I'm optimizing my website at the moment. So I've got this MVP version of my learning hub, where if it's a few months in, I got told so many times it's better done than perfect. And in my mind's eye, it's so not perfect. There's so many other features I want to add, but the churn rate's really low. We've got 250 members. It's all good. And I'm doing this kind of building public thing as well. So yeah, creating landing pages, helping me flesh out my ICPs as well, for the whole business. So I've got I knew that I wanted to attract corporates who might want multi-seats, and I knew I wanted to attract affiliates who are going to sell seats for me, like as a growth plan. And then I knew I wanted individuals as well, but I couldn't quite crack who would be the best individual, given my background and what I can talk about, given the fact the site is going to be really sales, marketing and productivity heavy. And then given what's out there and pain levels for different, like VA's pain level is probably extremely high at the moment when it comes to AI. So they're wanting to upskill quickly, but their budgets are low. And there's so many different factors around that. I just wondered, I really needed these other segments. And I was able to do that so quickly using AI and in a really strong way. So it could pull from all these reports. It's just an excellent sounding board. I think this, what do you reckon? Act as a business growth consultant. That's a whole other business, actually. So something I use it really well for is I explain my entire situation. And I'm going to build a GPT for this because I keep on typing in the same thing. So that's a recommendation. Every time you do something more than once, build a GPT, especially if you do it every day. And I start to do this every day. Act as a business growth consultant with an amazing, with decades of experience in helping, businesses like mine. And then I give loads of information about what the business is and where I want it to go and how quickly. And then I say, what are the next steps I should be taking? this is the money I've got in the bank. This is who I want to be seen. This is, these types of people are my inspirators. What should I be doing this week? What should I be doing this month? And what should I be doing in the next 6 months? And somebody this morning, August is looking dry as a bone. How do I look at, how do I build revenue when most people in my UK audience are going to be on holiday? Like, how can I keep the business afloat during a quiet month? And it just helps. It's amazing for that type of thing. So as a strategist, as a growth consultant, it's incredible. You'd pay so much for that type of advice normally. And absolutely love it for that type of thing. So I don't use it for LinkedIn posts. People, no. So I do use it for my clients. So I still have some legacy clients from a marketing agency, and I use it to create first drafts. And they work perfectly fine. They function well. But for me, my LinkedIn posts are just a bit, they're so conversational, and they just, yeah, they are. So I don't use AI in any way, other than sometimes I use it to come up with ideas and just think, well, I've spoken about that. What else can I talk about today? But usually it's just an instinctive. But that's because I used to be a writer. It's a nice, pleasurable thing. A lot of people can't bear the idea of sitting there writing a LinkedIn post and find it difficult, but I love it.
Yeah, when I spoke to Erica Schneider, she was talking about her sort of approach to writing posts, and slightly off AI, because she doesn't use it. She's just like, if I'm enjoying it and I think it's fun or whatever, then I go away and post. And like she will write on the day. And I don't know anybody that's as prolific, as daily, consistently, that is as prolific and as high quality as she is when she just sits down and writes it on the day. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, which is always a good sign of a good writer. So where can people find you? Like, where are you sort of speaking next? Have you got some dates and shows lined up? Where can people sort of come and ask you questions?
You'll be able to reel these off, shouldn't I? LinkedIn is the #1 best place to find me, and I advertise all my speaking stuff on the AI for Techies company page. Anything's open to the public. I'm doing a lot of different bits. I'm speaking at FixFest, the copywriting festival by Glenn Fisher. That's coming up on it's in July. It's the 5th of July, 4th of July. It's one of those dates. I really should know that. I'm not doing a very good job.
But this might not go out by then, so it may have already happened. So if you want to listen back to our talk from FixFest.
But that sounds amazing. It's a festival in a crypt with like 200 copywriters. What? So that's going to be really cool. Yeah, they've got like robot dancing and all sorts of different things. It's going to be amazing. Then there's a giant pub crawl afterwards. It's like the #1 thing I'm doing this year. Yeah. So that's cool. Coming up soon. But yeah, I'm speaking at lots of different things, but I do tons of. I'm going to start doing a kind of audio thing on LinkedIn every week, just chatting about what's going on in AI that week, things I've found, because I think that might be useful to people. And rather than just bore my husband, I will bore people on LinkedIn instead with my rambles. That's the plan.
No, that works. So I just on that, in terms of like engaging people and building an audience and getting people to sort of come in as well. Like, the good thing about those lives is they're quite easy to throw up in terms of putting the event on and just coming and talking. You tend to get some pretty good engagement, and you'll build a community pretty fast that way as well. So as soon as you get some details of that, Heather, make sure, I'm sure you will, but I'd be very keen to kind of come along and hear what you have to say on a weekly basis. That'd be great.
Yeah, excellent. I will do.
So thank you so much for coming and chatting. So much information, so much going on with AI. We'll probably have to do this again in a few months when you've got some more stuff to share with us. So I really appreciate your time, Heather. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.